There is nothing more in the world that I love than trolling around on everyone's favorite e-commerce website, Amazon. Now, I am worried that when I use a phrase like trolling, people will assume that I'm some grotesque monster slithering like a fork-tongued serpent in the darkness, trying to harass sellers on Amazon through verbal wordplay and other shenanigans. But that could not be farther from the truth for me. What I mean by trolling is that I take great pleasure in searching out for obscure artifacts, antiques, and other oddities that you would not find in a basic search. Needless to say, I'm quite a huge nerd and fanatic lover of old-fashioned and old-timey things, and Amazon is able to scratch that itch for me. Unfortunately, my bank account would beg to differ. It practically curses me out every time I make a purchase on something I may not arguably need. I'm sure you can relate. It's fine though. Whenever friends or family visit me in my little apartment full of trinkets with plenty of history behind them, they're quite fascinated with what I have to share with them. All in all, I would say my little hobby is, without a doubt, worth doing. However, as the archaic saying goes, all good things must eventually come to an end, no matter how special or resistant to time one may think it is. My final purchase was one I made at random. I didn't have a grand plan at all for this last purchase of mine. I searched for a mystery box, and when the search results came back, only one listing was found. The listing was for an honest-to-God mystery box, labeled and everything as such. The image of the box was rather strange, though. I'll admit that much. It was a pale yellow and had a single keyhole in the front of it. The top four edges had plain miniature crowns with a red jewel embedded into the center of them. The price that the seller was asking was, in my opinion, pretty outrageous for a most likely yellow-painted box. Although I had money to splurge, and seeing as it was my final purchase in the foreseeable future, I decided to go ahead and pay the sum of an embarrassingly huge amount. I have Prime, so the delivery date was slated for the next day, and I could not have been more excited to see what wonders would be encapsulated within that box. At the same time, I felt regretful of my purchase. It was worth at least 2 weeks' worth of groceries, and if the contained item was not worth it, well, my parents would not be too keen to bail me out again. Trying to get the possible idea of my funds going to waste out of my mind, I decided to play video games with my online friends and gulp down a beer every time we lost. I lost track around 6 matches. Stupid, I know. I never said my diet and lifestyle were great, sue me. The next day I woke up around 8 in the evening and held my head between my knees, trying to calm down my throbbing headache. I slowly made my way, inch by inch, to my kitchen across from my bed in hopes that some water would soothe my system. Right before I took a sip of that sweet, iodine-filled city water, my doorbell rang and I immediately dropped my glass into the sink. My head was pounding now and I wanted nothing more than to slip into some dark, cold crevice away from the world. I groaned and heard footsteps walking away from my door. Oh, that's right. My package must have arrived. Wonderful. I could have gone without the rude awakening in my pained, sobered state. I wiped my eyes and opened my door to see Amazon's signature brown box on the ground. I picked it up and carefully closed the door behind me so that it made as little noise as possible and sat down on my bed. Through half-closed eyes, I lazily opened the box, pulled out the golden chest. I blinked a couple of times to be sure that I was seeing it right. It was much tinier than the photos made it look. It could sit perfectly in the palm of my hand, which disheartened me somewhat. A brass key came with it, and figuring there was no point in waiting any longer, I inserted it into the lock and turned the key. It opened with a quiet click, and I lifted open the top. Huh? It was a USB stick. A plain black USB stick. I was baffled, to say the least. Of all the things I thought a mystery box would contain, this was by far the furthest thing from my mind. Curiosity then got the best of me, and I was able to forget my nausea and hangover for a moment to get up, sit at my computer, and plug that bad boy into the USB port. It took a few minutes for the device to upload all of the data stored within it. When I was finally able to access the files, I noticed that there were only 5. But each of the files were videos, each approximately 1 hour long. It's not too uncommon for people to store videos and pictures digitally like this, but the titles of the videos are what perturbed me. Each video title was a single word, and combined, the 5 of them made a coherent sentence. I will love her forever. No matter who you are, if you even have a tiny inkling that you may witness something depraved or sadistic in nature, you will inevitably look. So that is what I did. I clicked open the first video and it was nothing but a black screen for about the first half hour. But when I turned up the volume, I was able to hear some rushing water. I guessed it was someone taking a shower or something. The camera must have been covered up or hidden, giving the video a voyeuristic quality. At around the 49-minute mark, the screen turned into static and the screen shifted to a man wearing a plain white mask with eye holes. You could hear him breathing deeply and far too purposely, like in some way denoted sexual excitement. The whites of his eyes almost entirely covered by red blood vessels, like he hadn't slept for days. He had on a black hoodie that covered up his massive frame and head. And that was what the rest of the video was until the final minute. As soon as the video hit the 59-minute mark, each following second was a different image of a young girl in her most intimate moments, to her being followed in public places, but never close enough to make out her face. I quickly turned off the video and unplugged the USB stick, tossing it over to my bed and shaking slightly. Clearly, what I had just witnessed was a stalker's cornucopia of hidden videos that they got themselves off to. Wanting nothing more to do with the prize from my mystery box, I was going to throw it away after taking a shower. I didn't even want it in my possession anymore. I felt like I needed to take one after viewing the video, and the apprehension I felt for what the other videos might contain disturbed me. Before I could make my way to the bathroom, I heard my phone ring. I winced slightly from the ring and saw that I received a text from an unknown number. It said, "You weren't supposed to get that box." Confused, I asked who the sender was, and in reply, I received that same text another 15 times in a row. Startled, I nearly dropped my phone. After a few moments, I received one final text that said something most harrowing. "I'm coming for my box." Oh geez, alright, that does it. I knew right then and there that I needed to leave immediately. Through some insane method I'd rather not know, the stalker guy was coming for me. I don't know if he was the one who sold me the mystery box or how he got my number, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. I groggily changed my clothes, packed a bag full of some food and clothes, and grabbed my wallet, the USB and keys, and was ready to go. I opened my door and froze in place. The hallway light to the apartment complex was off, and at the end of the hallway next to the exit sign stood a behemoth of a man, wearing that same white mask from the video. He slowly raised a meaty hand, pointing it at me. I asked how the heck he found me so quickly and what he wanted, but he ignored my questions and started walking towards me. I threw the USB stick at him and he caught it in mid-step but continued to walk towards me. He grumbled a single word: "Witness." I slammed my door and decided to leave through my first-story window. I opened it clumsily and hoisted myself over the sill, falling to the ground with a groan. I stood up and started to run as I heard the door to my room being kicked open and the man walked with purpose toward the window. I started to run down the street towards the nearby police station that was only 2 miles away. My hungover heart worked double time to help me outrun this lunatic. I turned around and saw that the stalker was only a few feet behind me. How was he able to catch up so quickly? I didn't know, but I could see the lights to the station ahead of me. Salvation for me was right there, but somehow this monster caught up to me and grabbed the collar of my shirt, enough to pull me back and toss me into a nearby alley. I started to get back up when I received a brutal kick to my ribs, forcing me back to the ground as I curled up into the fetal position, cradling my no doubt cracked ribs. I pleaded for the man to leave me alone, that I was sorry for running away and that I wouldn't tell anyone about his hobbies or the USB stick evidence. Surprisingly, he paused and appeared to consider this for a moment. His bloodshot eyes squinted down at me like he was passing judgment on me. Finally, he raised that same hand he caught the USB stick with and made a shushing gesture with his index finger. I nodded frantically and said that I would keep quiet as I knew nothing about him. I watched as he turned around and pulled off his mask so that it wouldn't stick out once he returned to the street, which angered me since I'm sure someone must have seen what happened and chose to do nothing to help a fleeing woman. That didn't matter to me anymore, as I was now safe from a brutal beating by promising my silence to this stranger. At least, I believed myself to be safe, and then he said something that forced me to continue running that night even though he walked the other way. "I'll be watching you, Jennifer," he said in a gruff, raspy voice. He knew my name, which led me to a horrifying realization. I was the one that this psycho was stalking. The videos were about me. I only lived because he must have wanted to have more fun with me before doing God knows what to me. I sobbed for a while in that dank alley and decided not to go to the police if he was able to nearly murder me in such a short time frame. I knew he would have no problem doing it again before the police could do anything. That was around a month or so ago, and I haven't been able to rest peacefully since. I've been couch surfing at friends' and family's places, never longer than a few days at a time. But I can't sleep for fear of him suddenly appearing at the door, catching me unaware. I could feel him watching. That silent, foreboding harbinger of death will one day introduce me to my end. It's only a matter of time.